50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon-like hope to millions of Negro slaves who have been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. So we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, will be guaranteed the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on its promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we come here to cash this check, a check that was given us upon demand, the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We've also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is not time to rise up against the what? Oh my goodness. Rise up against the whatever. Yeah, I know. Rise up against the whatever. Now is the time to lift our nation from quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope the Negro needs to blow off steam will not be content. We have a rude awakening that the nation returns to business as usual. There will be the rest of tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The world of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something I want to say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on a high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, is rise to majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not allow distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, evidenced by their presence here today, had come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They come to realize that their freedom inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we take the pledge we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who ask in the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro is a victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We cannot be satisfied. As long as our bodies heavy with fatigue of travel, black game lodging in the motels of the highways and hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as our children are robbed of their cell phone and stripped of their dignity by sign saying for whites only. We can never be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes nothing but which to vote. No, we are not satisfied. And we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you come fresh from now jail cells. Some of you come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Remember, the work with the suffering, the unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Alabama, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. I say to you today, my friends, let's not wallow in valley despair. I say, even though we face difficulties of today and tomorrow, we still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day, on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves, the sons of former slave owners, were able to sit down together at a table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with his governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys, little black girls, were able to join hands with sisters and brothers. I have a dream that one day my 4 little children will be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream one day that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough way will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, all flesh shall see it together. This is the hope, this is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this hope, we'll be able to transform the giant discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we're able to work together, to struggle together, go to jail together, stand for freedom together. No, we'll be free one day. This be a day when all of God's children get recycled new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers are, land of the pillars by every mountainside that freedom ring. And if America has become a great nation, this must become true. So that freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, that freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York, that freedom ring from the hiking Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, that freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California, but not only that, that freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia, that freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee, every hill and molehill, that freedom ring. When we let freedom ring from every village, every hamlet, every state and every state, will speed of day with all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestant and Catholic, be able to join hands singing the words, the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty.